what the Buhari government is aiming at achieving. There's been a lot of criticism on what they did not do and perhaps what they didn't do right in the first 4 years. With all of these they have done today and said, what about their next level agenda? Is it the right way to achieve it? Let's get to Abuja studio where our former minister joins us now to discuss this, and a former member of the Good Governance Group, Mr. Adamu Waziri. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on the program. Let me first and foremost get you talking on what has affected a lot of Nigerians living in South Africa and has affected, really hit a lot of Nigerians. They're unhappy about it. What happened in South Africa? The nation is apologizing to Nigeria. Is that enough? Would you say that's a good start? And what is your reaction to that?
Well, thank you, Shegun. When you are talking of international diplomacy and issues affecting sovereign countries and things like xenophobic attack taking place, a meeting of minds is what South Africa has just done, to send a presidential delegation to come and meet the leader of our country and offer an apology. That shows a realization that what took place in their home country is against the norm of Africanness and good neighborliness, and probably is not a good compensation for what Nigeria has gone through to end apartheid. The next issues are issues of material concern that cannot be done in the open and as quickly as Nigerians would expect. There must be an evaluation. There must be something, some concrete evidences or claims against which compensation can be offered. And I believe between now and the time our president will visit South Africa, the various agencies that are working in the background would avail to our president those statistics against which issues of compensation can be raised. But Nigeria is a big brother. The compensation is only going to be another palliative. What we would like that issues like this should not have arisen and should be avoided in future, because as President Obasanjo said, that that issue, that those incidences that took place are unacceptable, not only between South Africa and Nigeria, but within the African continent as a whole.
Mr. Waziri, beyond the apology, the hurts on Nigerians are established. Businesses burned down, livelihood destroyed. What would you rather think that Nigeria could do to send perhaps a stronger message for a lot of Nigerians who feel hurt and a lot of them who are now returning to the country? Any other thing that you think are probably necessary to send a stronger message?
Well, the issue is that we are not talking about a stronger message. We must be realistic. Nigerians in droves have gone to South Africa to earn a living, and they must operate within the confines of the rules and laws of that country. If a couple of Nigerians, a minuscule few, have been found to have been engaged in criminal activities, that is not a license for ordinary South Africans to take the law into their hands. That is one side of the question. The second issue is that, as of now, we don't have any concrete basis on which to make claims for compensation. In the background, both in South Africa and in Nigeria, there must be agencies and agents of governments that are working to see that all victims of those attacks are identified. Their losses also categorized, and then the monetary values attached to those losses. And this will be availed as working document to the delegation that I believe will precede the visit of the president, and also will be availed to the presidential team when they arrive in South Africa. Don't forget, South African business have also suffered in Nigeria, even though it is a reaction to what happened there. So if we are talking about compensation, we must also be realistic that they will also ask for compensation for their own businesses that have been affected.
Yeah.
So it's a bilateral issue that we need to cool down the tension so that wise counsel will be allowed and diplomacy will come into play to resolve the issue.
Just before we entered into the studio, we understand that the president has set up an economic advisory council to be headed by Professor Doyin Salami, and to be secretary is going to be Dr. Muhammad Adaya Salisu. What does this all mean altogether? Let's get back to the conversation. We have a former member of the federal cabinet, a former minister, Waziri, Adamu Waziri. Thank you so much for talking to us. Let me get your view, Mr. Waziri. The president or the presidency is expecting that there will be an assessment of each minister on what they have done. This didn't happen when you were a minister, did it? And what do you think the effect of that will be on governance in Nigeria?
Well, Jean, let me say that what the vice president announced is a radical departure from the character and content of this administration, that is from 2015 to date. And it is a positive development that some performance rating of ministers will now be used. And it is important to know who announced it and where it was announced. The vice president is a professor. So he's somebody who knows how to assess students. And he announced it at a forum where the forum under the auspices of the Nigerian Institute of Management. So the vice president was directly talking to the audience. That would make them to clap for him, which is good enough. But let me say that it is tried management technique that when you give somebody a role, you must also have a mechanism that will evaluate his attainment, accomplishment of that role. But I hope besides that, there is also the other mechanism that will be monitoring the performances of the ministers before December. Because the issue is that that mechanism is not to witch hunt or to punish, is to ensure effective attainment of goals, effective delivery of service, which is what we need in this country. So, politics aside, I'm a PDP man to the core. I would like to applaud the government that they have found it necessary to now assess ministers against benchmarks given to them by the president, of which we ordinary Nigerians don't know. So there must be, I hope there is going to be a window in the mechanism where the views of ordinary Nigerians like me, if I so wish, can also be used as an additional tool in assessing the performances of the ministers.
Let me quickly,
so that we'll be able to have a good living.
Yeah, from what you said, it's interesting to note, because the thing is that if you employ anyone and you are assessing the person based on the performance, you should probably be able to hire and fire. in the administration of former President Obasanjo, Jonathan Yeradua, we've seen little or no cases of if you perform below our expectation and you've been fired. Assessment does not even come to the table. But with this one, the Vice President said mandate action points have been clearly given to each minister. Do you think there is a political will to tell the minister to go home if he's been assessed below par?
Shegun, I would like to correct you. I participated in the government of President Obasanjo and also the government of President Yeradua as well as President Goodluck Jonathan. During Obasanjo's time, ministers have been assessed and they have been fired, and new ones appointed in their place. Secondly, during President Yeradua's government, ministers were assessed. I was one of those fired in 2008. There must be a basis for the president to appoint and dismiss during reshuffle. Unfortunately, between 2015 and 2019, we have not seen the type of activity in terms of reshuffles, in terms of firing people because they didn't perform. Now there is a commitment because there is a public disclosure that this mechanism is in place. And I believe it will go in to improve the quality of governance, the quality of delivery of service. I think we are promised the next level. Probably this is one of the steps that is taken to take us to the next level.
Mr. Emmanuel Daniel, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
I guess the Lagos traffic held you at some point.
Yes.
Quickly, because our time is fast spent, we have a few minutes on the program. Let me get your view on the South African issue, first and foremost, before we go into the Buhari cabinet matter. On the xenophobia attacks, South Africa has come to apologize to Nigeria. Is that enough?
No, I think they need to do more. I think South African government needs to do more. This is not the first time that we've seen this xenophobic attack. And simply because the government hasn't done anything about it in the past is the reason why this is happening again. So I think that there has to be a lot of pressure on the side of the Nigerian government to ensure that the South African government does beyond just saying, making an apology. Lives are lost. They must be able to guarantee the lives of Nigerians. Every life of Nigerians in South Africa matters. And they must be able to give adequate security to the citizens.
What do you think Nigeria could have done better than these all South African should do?
First things first, I think the government's reaction was very poor. We must accept that it was very, very poor. When your citizens are being attacked, I think that there must be very strong recommendations from the Nigerian government to see that even members of the political party, especially the head of the political party, is making the kind of statements that was made, was quite appalling from a party that is the ruling party. So I think that we need to look inward as a government and as party to say to ourselves that do the lives of our citizens really matter to us? Because that's the most important thing. All right.
Let me get your view on this in 20 seconds. The president, the presidency says his ministers will give account in December. In less than 30 seconds, what is your view on that?
Well, I think they should do more than that. I think they should have a portal where Nigerians himself, every Nigerian can actually view and see exactly what these ministers are doing. It's not good enough for them to say that they're going to be a performance, they're going to be able to look at the performance of the ministers. Who's checking? On whose terms are they checking? What are the bases in which they are? If the ministers are not doing so well, would it not look so bad on the government? Would the government want to be able to come out and say, well, the people we chose? No, let the people choose. Let the people decide.
Okay.
Put the platform on it.
I wish we had more time. I wish traffic had allowed you.
Yes.
But more sincerely also thank Alhaji Adamu Waziri, who was talking to us, who's spoken to us from our Abuja studio. Your experience being in the cabinet. Thank you so much for sharing those on the program tonight. And Mr. Emmanuel Daniel, the national chairman of the ANN. Thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's our show for tonight, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'm Sean Akimale. Bye-bye.